Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lone Star podcast, and this is episode 21 of my side quest. I know in this episode we're talking about it's going to be mostly boxing, heavily boxing. I'm talking about the Otto Wallin v Derick Chisora fight that's happening tonight. But by the time this video comes out, this will probably be like a week or so after the fight's actually happened. I'm going to talk about a bit of both guys' careers and talk about this fight, who I think is going to win. Looking at, like I said, both guys' careers, Derick Chisora and Otto Wallin. I'm talking about some other boxers as well, and just see wherever it takes us. And there's also been some boxing news regarding Canelo and Jake Paul, and Canelo and Crawford. But yeah, let's start with Derick Chisora and Otto Wallin. So this is a fight that's happening in the heavyweight division. Both guys are at interesting points in their career. Both guys, this is probably one of the biggest fights for both of these guys because neither of them are anywhere near a world title shot. Even though Derick Chisora is coming off a very good win against Joe Joyce. That being said, Derick Chisora, he's had so many big fights, lost so many big fights at this point. He's not really going to get another world title shot unless he gets like a layup like Tyson Fury did when he just kind of felt sorry for him and felt like giving him a payday. And yeah, that happened there. But Derick Chisora is a fighter his current record is 35-13. So very much at that gatekeeper level. Very much at that journeyman gatekeeper level. He's been knocked out 4 times, which considering the amount of fights he's had, the amount of wars he's been through, is not actually that bad. Only 4 knockouts doesn't actually sound too bad, but 9 decision losses. Obviously, he's been outboxed plenty of times. And I think this should be one of Derick Chisora's last matches. To be honest, it should be one of his last matches. Derick Chisora has been in this business for donkey's amount of years at this point. You know, he's been boxing forever, it feels like. Been in the heavyweight division forever. And looking at his record in the past couple of years, he's had a few wins. He had some interesting wins against guys like David Price, Carlos Takam, of course, Joe Joyce most recently. He even beat Pulev in a rematch and a split decision. But so many losses. Lost to Dillian White twice, lost to Joseph Parker twice, lost to Fury twice, lost to Usyk. Of course, the Usyk fight was an interesting fight. I remember watching this fight live, and I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, I mean, Usyk's winning this fight pretty comfortably, but Chisora's having his moments and he's applying pressure and he's making it a more difficult fight than someone who's just looking at the record may suggest. You just see, you look at his record, okay, lost to Usyk, unanimous decision, he probably just got dominated. Not really. Chisora definitely had his moments, and Chisora in that fight was definitely trying to play to his strengths. He was a bigger guy, he was trying to apply that pressure, trying to weigh on Usyk, trying to weigh him down, and at moments it was working, but Usyk is just miles better as a boxer than Derick Chisora. So unless Derick Chisora knocked him out, he was always going to struggle to win that fight over 12 rounds. And obviously Chisora lost that fight. But really, obviously, when he lost to Tyson Fury, I mean, that fight should never even happened. It was a joke that fight even got made. It was literally just giving Tyson Fury a layup, and Tyson Fury TKO'd him in the 10th round, and Tyson Fury doesn't TKO anyone. To be fair, like anyone that's half decent, Tyson Fury doesn't even TKO them. But that kind of shows you whereabouts Derick Chisora is in his career. Back-to-back losses to Joseph Parker. Beats Pulev in a rematch, split decision. Then goes into the Tyson Fury fight and loses. Then has 2 more fights after that, Jared Washington and Joe Joyce, and wins both of those. But to be honest, at this point in his career, I'm kind of wondering what... I mean, he's fighting for money, obviously. Like, all these boxers are, they're fighting for money. But Derick Chisora is never winning a world title. At this point, he's never won one before, has he? Let's have a look. International. Has he never been a world champion? Wow. Or maybe he has here. He's international. Yeah, he's never been a world champion, doesn't look like. These are international and British and Commonwealth. Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair to Derick Chisora, he's probably the most successful boxer to never win a world championship at heavyweight. Because he's got a lot of wins, fought in a lot of big fights and in a lot of big arenas, probably got paid very nice amounts of money. Even in his losses where he's got his ass handed to him, he's probably got paid very handsomely in those fights. And that's probably why he's still doing it, you know. He needs to get paid, but Dereck Chisora is definitely an interesting moment. He's sort of at the level he's been at his entire career. To be honest, when I saw him fight Usyk, I was like, even though he lost the fight to Usyk, and it's interesting to talk about because he lost the fight to Usyk, but I'm saying, like, if he can fight like this against most guys, he's going to have a lot of joy. But obviously, goes on after the Usyk fight, he has back-to-back losses to Joseph Parker, and at that point, you're pretty much done in terms of ever sort of accomplishing, not accomplishing anything. To say Dereck Chisora has never accomplished anything in boxing would be harsh, but boxing's the type of sport, if you're not in it to be a world champion, what are you in it for? Because to be honest, to be fighting at this sort of level where you're fighting for like international titles and continental titles, the amount of damage you're taking during these fights and during your training camps, is it really worth it? I would venture to say it's not. In my opinion, it's not worth it, but Dereck Chisora has clearly done that, risk analysis and decided that it is worth it for him. But I suppose the bigger question is, and why we really listen to this video is, do you think Dereck Chisora can beat Otto Wallin? And Dereck Chisora, he's got, the style of fight Dereck Chisora fights is he could beat anyone. He could catch anyone because he's a pressure fighter, especially early on in the fights as well, while he's still kind of fresh and still able to be disciplined in implementing a game plan. I've seen in a lot of these fights, the later on the fight goes, he naturally gets tired as an old man fighting in 10, 12 round fights, I'm a young man and I wouldn't want to do that, right? So I don't blame Dereck Chisora for, by the time the 6th, 7th, 8th round comes around, his ass is tired and it's hard to keep pressure in, it's hard to keep those hands up because you've been punching and being punched for the past 5, 6, 7 rounds and you've not knocked this guy out yet. But that's the thing, early on in Dereck Chisora's fights, in the first 4, 5, 6 rounds, if you're not able to see some of the punches he's throwing, and if he's able to implement his game plan, which is apply that pressure, weigh you down, weigh on you, apply those body shots, pressure, then he might have some success. But I guess the bigger question begs, is Otto Wallin good enough to actually stop Dereck Chisora from doing that? And Otto Wallin is a guy who, I look at his record, let's get it up, 27-2. I couldn't name you, I'm looking at his record, I don't know a single name that he's actually beaten. Okay, I know Gassiev, to be fair, but that's a split decision over a guy like Gassiev. Like, come on, bro. Gassiev, who was a former cruiserweight champion, who's coming up to heavyweight, he beats Gassiev, Dominic Brazil, and the rest of these guys are bums that he's beaten. The guys he's lost to are the only 2 guys in his resume that I really know, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So in my opinion, when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, these are both guys who, whenever they've faced world-class opponents, they've lost. So they're clearly not at that level. And when you're talking about these guys that are just a tier below world-class level, it's very hard to predict sort of who can win these fights, because a lot of these fights, they're sort of gimmies. You look at the records, you see a guy who's 27-2 against a guy who's 35-13. Naturally, the favourite, looking at the records, is going to be the guy who's 27-2 because he's taken less damage, he's lost less fights. But Otto Wallin's not even he's a pretty big puncher for what it's worth in terms of the guys he's beaten. He's got 15 knockouts out of 27, so he's a somewhat respectable puncher, but Dereck Chisora is not an easy guy to knock out, to be fair as well. He's not easy. He's only been knocked out 4 times in 48 fights. Dereck Chisora is not an easy guy to knock out. Tyson Fury TKO'd him. But before then, he hadn't been stopped since Dillian Whyte in 2018. So he went 4 years between getting knocked out, and he was pretty active in that time. He fought a lot he fought a few times in 2019, fought in 2020, fought a couple times in 2021, and then in this last fight of 2022, he got knocked out or TKO'd by Tyson Fury rather. So Chisora's not an easy guy to knock out. Otto Wallin, could he outbox him? Potentially. I see a guy like Joseph Parker outboxed him, but is Otto Wallin as good of a boxer as Joseph Parker? Probably not. Again, probably not. So you're looking at it, you have to kind of be an elite sort of not an elite boxer, because Joseph Parker is not an elite boxer, but you kind of have to be at somewhat a very high level boxer to outbox Dereck Chisora, because stopping him is not going to be easy. So for that, I'm probably gonna have to lean towards Dereck Chisora. That would put Dereck Chisora on a 3-fight win streak, which puts him in an interesting position in the heavyweight division. Of course, he's not getting a world title fight. I guess maybe an Anthony Joshua fight maybe would be it. I guess if Deontay Wilder's retiring, I guess he could fight him. He could probably beat Deontay Wilder as well. The way Deontay Wilder's looking, Dereck Chisora, that would actually be a pretty good fight for Dereck Chisora, to be honest. At this point in Deontay Wilder's career, and obviously with Deontay Wilder, they'd still build it up, say he's still this phenom, he's not, he's finished, he's cooked, but the media build-up would be like, oh, this guy's still knocked out loads of people. When he could still knock out Chisora, he probably couldn't. And he probably wouldn't knock out Dereck Chisora. That would actually be probably the biggest stroke, easiest fight for Dereck Chisora. Because Dereck Chisora would absolutely bully Deontay Wilder. Those stick legs he's got, yeah, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be a good night for Dereck Chisora. Because at this point, Deontay Wilder, everyone that fights Deontay Wilder should know his game plan. At this point, Deontay Wilder is such a one-dimensional boxer that anyone that's half decent with half a brain cell that's at the top of the heavyweight division should beat him pretty handedly. And when I talk about heavyweight boxing, I'm probably going to mention Deontay Wilder's name quite a bit because he's still somewhat of a big enough name to where a guy could fight him and then use that as like a stepping stone to go into bigger and better things for now. Obviously, if Deontay Wilder has a couple more losses, I mean, even one more loss and he's cooked. To be fair, even the way he is now, he's cooked. You know, Deontay Wilder's never winning a world title again, probably never fighting for a world title again. In reality, he's another guy like probably Dereck Chisora where you should retire because you're not going to fight for a world title fight. And then you're just fighting these sort of guys that are on the fringe level and you're losing to these guys, taking a lot of damage in these fights. Is it worth it? Now, like I said before, for me, obviously it's not, but for these guys, they've kind of made the decision that it is worth it for them. But I'm going to pick Dereck Chisora for this fight. I think Dereck Chisora, he's got enough weapons to beat a guy like Otto Wallin. He's been in there under the big lights many, many times. He's been in there with world champions. He's been in there with guys at heavyweight who are at the top of their game, and he's held his own. Even when he's been outboxed, he's held his own. He's never sort of shied away from the fight, never shied away from the smoke. He's in there. He'll keep pressing forward. He'll keep throwing punches. Otto Wallin's a lot younger. But Joe Joyce was a bit younger. Joe Joyce was a Joe Joyce isn't that young of a guy. Joe Joyce is the sort of guy who went pro really late. But the type of guy that he could cause problems for Deontay Wilder, but I don't think Otto Wallin's a good enough boxer over, I'm assuming it'll be a 10-round fight, over a 10 or 12-round fight to be able to stop a guy like Dereck Chisora for 12 rounds. So I'm leaning towards Dereck Chisora, but I could be wrong because, like I said, at this sort of level, when you're guys who are fringe world title guys, Otto Wallin's never really he's faced a couple good guys, but he's never beaten anyone actually that good. It's going to be a gimme. It's going to be a pick 'em fight. But I'm going to pick Dereck Chisora for this fight. And we go on to a guy who fought a couple weeks ago. Well, no, last week at this point. Wow, it's been a week, damn. An English boxer called Adam Azim. Now, Adam Azim currently fights in the light welterweight division. He's just won the IBO light welterweight championship. He's an undefeated boxer. 13-0, 10 knockouts. So everyone he's facing, he's knocking him out. He's only been his last couple of fights, he's facing guys who are actually, somewhat even respectable. He turned pro in 2020, had his pro debut at the end of 2020. Adam Azim's a guy who, like I said, only these past couple of fights he started facing guys who are even somewhat respectable in terms of O'Hara Davis, and then his most recent win against Sergey Lipinets. And Sergey Lipinets, in my opinion, is a quite a good boxer. To be fighting a guy like Sergey Lipinets this early on in your career and TKOing him, in my opinion, it sort of shows that you're doing the right things. And Adam Azim is an interesting type of fighter because I'm seeing him fight. Of course, he's stopping all these guys, but I don't know. I kind of want to see if there's something if there's like something below the surface. He's the sort of fighter I'm really keen to see him get tested, is what I'm trying to say. I really want to see a guy like Adam Azim get tested and see what he's really made of. Because I look at his resume, I look at his performances, I look at his wins, I'm like, this guy, in terms of a promoter, he's like a promoter's dream. Like that saying, the promoter's dream. Because this guy, he can talk decent, he knocks these guys out, he's, you know, he's pretty for like Instagram reels and TikToks. You can make cool edits of him because he's knocking these dudes out. And I appreciate he's still young. I appreciate he's only 13-0. But I'm really interested to see this guy's career. He's still unbeaten. TKO Sergey Lipinets, who's a former world champion. Former world champion. It's a serious achievement in my opinion to be doing this early on in his career, stopping him in the 9th round. I didn't watch this fight, so I don't know if it was like a sort of close fight and then Azim caught him, or Azim was just dominating him and then broke him down. But to have that sort of name on your resume is very respectable. Very respectable. And he now won the IBO light welterweight title with that fight. So yeah, Adam Azim's a guy who I'm really interested to keep my eye on and see where his promoter goes with it, how far they push him. Will he stay at light welterweight? Will he move up to welterweight, super welterweight? Will he, you know... I'm interested to see, because he's a seriously talented boxer and he's stopping these guys, and you don't see that too often. A sort of young prospect coming through the British ranks, the London ranks, and fighting, you know, in and around London and just knocking these dudes out. It doesn't happen too often, particularly at these lower weight classes. Obviously, you're light welterweight, you're not tiny. It's pretty small, obviously, but it's not like you're at Naoya Inoue's weight classes, for example. You know? Let's look at Adam Azim's amateur career. Amateur career, amateur career, fought out welterweight. Yeah, and so he's a guy who definitely has some amateur pedigree coming into it, and this is an interesting one to talk about because I've talked about this on the podcast with Evan, where in boxing, the better you are as an amateur, normally the quicker you can get fast-tracked as a pro. So you see these guys who basically have like no amateur experience that come in at pro and have to fight their way in these small shows, the leisure centres, the bars, the white-collar boxing events, work their way up 5, 10, 15-0, and then they start seeing like these sort of top-tier opponents coming for them. Whereas Adam Azim, he's 13-0 and he's already fought a talented guy like Sergey Lipinets this early on in his career, but he's been able to do that because as an amateur, he won 10 national titles. He won a European Championship and got a European silver medal, and he won every national title from schoolboys to youths and was ranked #1 youth amateur welterweight in the world at one point, which makes complete sense because this guy's he's pretty tall for the weight class as well. He's like 5'11", so 5'11" fighting at light welterweight, you're going to be a problem for a lot of guys, and he's only 22. He's only 22, so Adam Azim's a guy who I'm really interested to see where his career goes, knocking out a lot of guys. I want to see how far he can go at. I think he could probably even go up 1-2 weight classes maybe with that sort of height. And if his frame can put on the muscle and size, then he can cause problems for a lot of guys. But yeah, that's been it from me, guys. It's been another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. It's been episode 21, and I'm out. Peace.